That's a good one. Thank you. Very good one. You guys need, can I give you your purse back after this? I'll do the time. Thank you.
That's part of the deal, right?
I'm already making money, I guess.
You didn't see the rest of my party on the way in, did you?
Good. You're very tall on that stool. Did you know that?
Your bench press?
Excuse me, sweet pea. Well, hello, a long time no see.
I'm not going to listen to this.
Where are we going? Alright, at least you got a job.
You're a parent.
I'm good, right? I like the back row. Back row kind of guy. Is that alright? You might wait up here.
My pants were off.
It's not like
Hey, Laura. Canyon. All right, you listen to your brother. Canyon? You sort of on kid watch?
well, he's got to take my girls at 7 to, so
These guys are fine. I was just going to say, we're going to leave the doors open so kids can access us. This isn't hush hush
but
shut.
try to,
Go do some magic.
They'll be fine.
There's some, play the cards. Once you have some cards, you need some more cards?
Jen.
You guys need 10
All of them?
Sounded like a penguin.
No, this is from Angela.
I'm going to need something to sit on. You know what Kestrel does to our stools?
She really does that?
Yeah. So just like tear her way in and start ripping it. No. This tripod's so great because with this little thingy and then this little thing, you can like adjust the tightness.
But it's 5:35.
So like if you're gonna lift it up, you can make it stay still. But if you're gonna need to like work it around.
Are you ready for class?
Should we wait a few more minutes? Should we just have a conversation? And then, who wants to share?
I saw Jerry out running today.
Are you asking some questions? Not yet. You want us to start by sharing. I'm just. Oh, this is just. I wonder. Let's go for it. Go for it? Yeah. Oh, we've got the video. Right up. Sam, you rolling?
Yeah, it's going. It's been going for 3 minutes and 32 seconds.
Okay. Okay. So thanks so much for showing up. We went back and forth in every direction discussing what would be best to do for conferences, and we really, we really wanted to make sure we were efficient and collaborative and all those things. So this is what we ended up with, and one of my favorite parent meetings ever, which Sia I know is a part of, and other year 1 kids, Parker's, was when we all sat in a circle and just got to talk and ask questions. So I was envisioning that. So welcome to that. We are super excited because it's been a fabulous year, and we just feel like, even though it's January, and every single January of my 20 years in this field, 20 plus years in this field, has come with some kookiness. I think that January is tough, but this year less than ever before. So I think that's another good sign. And so we would just like to start by having each of the teachers who teach your kids share a bit of what they've been doing in their classrooms and some highlights. And then we're hoping that that will start conversations presentation, and then you can ask questions. We'll try to record highlights and improvements that we feel are noteworthy. And as always, we'll just keep moving upward and onward. So, which one of you would like to go first?
I'll start. Sorry, Miss Erica. I'm Miss Erica. If you don't know me, I teach the mid-plussers, which are 3rd, 4th graders. I love my job. This is my 2nd full-time year at Orsch. I have the same group of kids this year that I worked with last year. Some highlights of the mid-plus world are just the sense of community that we have, because we've been together for 2 years, and because there's just a wonderful dynamic among the kids and myself. It's a really open environment. We do a lot of discussion and questioning and learning in a social, whole group way. And I feel like that sense of community is probably the most special part of our classroom. Some academic focuses we've had so far this year are research. The kids did a poster on a country of their choice. We've been doing lots with multiplication, moving into division. We just had a revamped spelling program to focus more on phonics, and a lot of writing in the structure of the paragraph and different kinds of sentences. So that's a little bit of my world.
Ms. Erica, will you speak to, because you've spent a really great chunk of time on multiplication concepts because of the curriculum you chose this year. Will you speak to that and its goals for the rest of the year?
I will. The curriculum that I'm using is investigation, so it's a very hands-on, lots of manipulative space, so using blocks and counters and different approaches to math rather than just rote memorization and worksheets. So we do a lot of work in class, a lot of partner work and social work and questioning amongst the kiddos and me. And this program, one of the reasons I chose it is because it starts focusing on multiplication and division. And that's the biggest concept, in my opinion, that our kiddos are moving into. So we've been working on it from the start of the year, and so we've really gotten a focus on it. And then as the year progresses, we'll be moving into fractions. We'll review addition and subtraction and regrouping, and touch on measurement and temperature, and a little bit of a review of money, some probability and things like that. But I love that it focuses on using manipulatives as a way of learning, because it really provides kiddos with a concrete, something to touch way of learning these concepts, which I don't know if you guys can remember learning how to multiply and divide, but it can be pretty out there and abstract.
We've also, in science, with Erica's class, done lots of data analysis, and so they've created bar graphs and charts with the information that we kind of have discovered through science, which I think is a really, really cool thing, because the mid-plus classes, in my experience this year, there's not one kid in there that isn't like, yay! And even when I say, do you want to put this in a bar graph? Yay! It's really cool to be able to integrate those things, and it helps her quite a bit. And then if we run out of time, she knows pretty seamlessly how to help the kids continue on, or as a secondary example. So you hear a lot of times in educational circles integrating math and science, and it's really easy to do, is what I'm finding, especially with all the groups. But this group, having had been together for quite some time, they like the idea of a collaborative project like that, where they can put their research in with their friends or their neighbors and the rest of the class and figure out the trends and things, and it's been really cool. So I just wanted to add that as far as the math focus.
We done, Schmack?
I think so.
I'm Miss Stephanie. I'm the new face at Orsch, for those of you that might not know me, and I teach the mid-littles. And we have a whopping class of 10 students, which has by far been one of my favorite things about working at Orsch. I have been blown away by the sense of community and just the strong kiddos that I have in my class. They just have a wonderful sense of self, and I didn't get that from as many students at the public school. So that in and of itself is a wonderful part of the mid-little world. In terms of academics, we certainly focus a lot on reading. We recently started
library stations where some of the kiddos are doing their own things, whether it be working on phonics or being read to on the computer or sitting with me and doing a guided reading type setting. So that's really been super beneficial in our world. We've also been really trying to hone in on the mechanics of writing and just remembering capitalization and periods and commas and things like that. And then in terms of math, we've really focused on our basic addition and subtraction skills. For some of us, that's single digit, and for some of us, that's regrouping. And that's another thing that's really cool about Orsch, is just the ability to differentiate, and the need to differentiate has really been a cool thing. And we've worked on telling time, and we've worked a lot with money the last couple weeks. And we'll continue to focus on those math skills, bringing more geometry, and hopefully get to multiplication at some point in school. So yeah, I just have had the best experience thus far this year, and I just know that all the kids are going to continue to grow. And I love Orsch.
Orsch, that's you.
I'm Erin, and I teach our Tinies and Pints this year. And we have 6 Tinies or kindergarten age and 5 Pints that are first grade level. They love anything that's easy, of course. They highlight of their day is getting basketball, science, and Stacy. We have a really wonderful music teacher, Miss Robin, who comes in and does really wonderful music, hands-on, different things with music. In math, their favorite thing, which totally blows me away, is sitting down and doing subtraction worksheets. They beg for subtraction worksheets with like 25 subtraction problems on them. It's a favorite thing to do. And we really work on writing machine just to a point where you can get your thoughts down and make notice things about the world around you and get them into writing. And we really worked hard on phonics and reading independently and in small groups and with me. And I've just had such a wonderful time. We also, one of my favorite things is the community we have in our classroom. And we really work on helping each other and building social and emotional skills as a group and as a team. And so it's going to be really fun. It's been a fun first semester.
I'm gonna give a shout out to Erin because she was sick one day and needed to go home and asked me to take over her classroom. And I'm the experienced one, right? And she asked me to do, as I put it earlier today, A, B, and C, and left very confidently that I'd be able to do it. And A got turned upside down and never got to B or C. She is an amazing presence in that classroom. I couldn't be more proud of you, Erin. And that's quite a spirited, wonderful group of individuals you are raising there.
Energetic.
And that's exactly what we want, because that's what children are. And you've just done a phenomenal job. And I have 10 times the appreciation. And I've had a lot. So we're not going to bother. Miss Stacy, you're next.
I've enjoyed the younger kids. I mean, the thing I love about teaching science to the youngest of our young group is their curiosity guides them so beautifully. And with Erica's class, and I've shared this with some of you parents before, is they never stop asking questions. Sometimes I literally have to go, okay, we got 20 minutes for questions, and then we really have to get going. And the questions are awesome. They're not questions like, why is the sky blue? Although that's a great question. They're questions of, if lava is formed under the ground, does that make it runnier than lava that comes out of the ground? I mean, I get to really do cool stuff with them, and it's a huge privilege to answer their questions and to explore things with them. And this year we've done volcanoes, obviously. They made volcanoes. We did viscosity testing, which sounds like a really scientific thing, but really it's just to see how fast things can run downhill. And there's not a kid here that doesn't like to get messy and watch things go. I wish I had them every day, because every one of your kids seems to really enjoy exploring science, and so it makes my job really easy. And they're always happy to see me, which is such a boost, but really it's the science, it's not me, it's their curiosity. They're at the peak level of asking why things happen, and I I could not be happier helping them figure that out. And I do help them figure it out. I don't just give them the answers. They get to explore, they get to test, they feel like scientists, and it makes me so happy. So thank you for giving me the opportunity and for allowing a schedule that adds so much more science to your younger kids' world, because they do get way more science with this program than they would in a normal elementary school setting. And so hopefully as they grow, their science fluency will grow with it. I'm having done this for a few years now with this group of kiddos. As they've grown, I really see a change in their science fluency skills. They already understand how to explore and investigate. So our super and Excel groups, I can build on all of those skills that I have been working on. And the new ones that come in are like, wow, you get to dissect something, you get to light things on fire, you get to mix chemicals and things, and it's, yeah, we do. We get to do a lot of really cool stuff. And they lead that, and they are wonderful science learners. So I have a lot of suggestions from them of things that they want to explore, and I do my very best to try to find opportunities and space for that as we can. And just so you guys know, from a curricular standpoint, every year I hit all 3 science realms: physical science, life science, and chemical science is what I like to call it. But it's an idea that you can't just teach one type of science every year. You really need to give them as many concepts as possible to increase their fluency, and so they don't get bored. I have some kids that all they want to do when it comes to science is study animals, and they have an innate love of living things. And so they'll do that all year long if you would let them. And then I have other kids that really aren't that interested in the furry creatures of the world. They want to know what happens when you mix A and B together, and is there an explosion, and does it fizz? And so to fit all their different dynamic personalities and learning styles, it works best to hit all different kinds of topics throughout the year. And for instance, we're studying worms right now, invertebrates in general, and I had a question today from a younger kid, did the worms come? Because we've been waiting for them for 2 weeks, as your kids may have been telling you. When are the worms going to get here? They're here, and they stink, and now I stink because of it. It's all great. But how does a worm move? And so I got to explain to him how their muscles are different than our muscles, and that they're circular, and that they can actually use potential energy to push themselves forward, just like a slinky or a coil or a spring. And so this young child, one of yours, said to me, "Can we make a model of that?" I was like, yes, we can. So there's physics and life science and I'm happy to take those suggestions, and sometimes they're the most inspiring suggestions ever, because seeing it through their eyes really does help me plan lessons appropriately, and making a model of an earthworm that uses potential energy is totally doable. It's within the bounds of my resources, and we'll make it happen, and maybe it'll stick a lot longer than just, I had earthworms in my hands, So thank you for giving me that opportunity and taking the time out of our academic schedule to let them explore that, because I think it's great, and I feel privileged to be able to do it. Thank you.
Yeah. So you're saying it's like a bust?
It's sort of a bust. Apparently shipping worms to Gunnison has its dangers, like freezing and stinky smells. And the post office actually called me and said, "Would you please come pick these up Saturday at noon? We'll stay late if you would just come pick up this stinky box." And I was like, "I don't want it. It's Saturday." I picked it up on Monday.
Are they alive?
Half of the 1,000 that I ordered are. The other half is.
I have worms.
Oh,
We
okay.
have a worm farm.
Yeah, that's what we have now. Half as strong as it was supposed to be, but we're going for
And
it.
it doesn't smell.
Okay. Yeah, no, it only smells because of the transit. So.
Okay.
Anyway.
If you need worms, we have a worm farm. Lots of worms.
I should have come to you earlier.
Yes.
So thanks, guys. I love teaching your kids. It's great.
Part of what you're hearing from these amazing professionals is in part what your kids get to experience too. They are each so excited about what they're doing because this is what they chose to do, and they have the freedom to do it the way that they feel is best. And although, as from an administrative view, I think a large piece of the world thinks that approach is very risky. I think what we're finding in this little tiny school in the middle of Colorado is that it's groundbreaking, and that it's really it fit all the kids. And if it's not fitting somebody, Elizabeth will come to me here and there and say, so-and-so's just not, this is just not working. So we go to the shelves and we find another one, you know, one that will actually strike. So the point though is that this freedom really does turn into passion, and that's part of what I'm so excited about this year, is seeing that all take shape with real experience and just the right people in place. Is such a great year, great team. Thank you so much, ladies, for all your passion, all your expertise, all your professionalism, and for taking freedom and turning it into just gold. So, Jordan and Elizabeth are here, but they don't teach your kids. So, do you want to say anything, Miss Jo?
I try to be in your children's lives as much as I can. I have a special relationship with almost all of them. And they make this community what it is. And I value it so much, even if it's just being tackled by Hersha or Wyatt or Ian or all of the above at the same time. It's just such an important part of my life. So thank you for your children.
That's another piece, thank you, is that I'm so excited about, and that is how much each of us genuinely love these little people that are running around. That's been a magical piece too, you know, even when they're little stinkers, and even when we have to be stern or guide them in a new direction. They got 8 to 12 loving parents at any given time, so thanks again for that too.
And I just want to piggyback on Elizabeth. I love hanging out with the little kids here and there and getting to sit down and read with them here and there. Because since I teach English and social studies, I love that aspect. But then it's really cool because Erin will send her little kids in, and it's like the highlight of my day. They'll come in with their math worksheets. Miss Jordan, you have to grade it right now. All right, guys, and I get to grade some math. But they're just so excited, and I love that.
Your little ones come parading through the school when they really have achieved something, and I wish all of you could at least one time watch how the older kids respond when the parade comes through. They look at him and they just burst into these grins because it might be John Henry who's like, look what I wrote! And there's not a kid in my class, an Excel class for instance, that doesn't go, nice job John Henry, way to go, high five. They are a huge part of our community. They might not be totally independent like the Excels are or the Supers, and they might not walk as tall, but man, they carry a big stick, and we love it. And the older kids, and I've said this for a couple years, your young ones keep our old ones really honest and forthright, and they advocate even better in the presence of small children. So that's the part of multi-age that I think is magical, and what develops the community that we have come to know makes us a little bit different. The community of learners where they care about what's going on with each other and can I help you, what can I do? If a little kid has a tear, it's not half a second before a big kid's like, what's going on? How can we help? And that has never wavered from the time we opened the doors. And that is magical. And that's what, as a parent, like, I love that. I have an older one and I have a younger one, and I love the whole dynamics, and watching those interactions makes it really special. And these young kids of yours really do look up to the older kids, but the older kids kind of look up to the younger ones too, I have to say. I mean, it really is, it's reciprocated both ways. So come and see it sometime. It's really cool.
I've always said that they are our keepers of integrity. They help our older kids know how true to yourself you can be, and it's just contagious. So they're now your children might believe in the tooth fairy a little longer than they should, but because nobody's out on the playground going, that's baloney. They really are protected in a wonderful way. So now if you have anything to add or ask or things you wish begging you to communicate with us. So if you're thinking things inside that you haven't brought up, it's not very good for you, but now's your chance. There is an anonymous box out there. I don't know if anybody caught it or not. Or you're welcome to email in questions that we can address. I can write up a document after this of things that were discussed. We're going to create a video in case anybody missed it. But what would you like to say or ask, or what would you like to see different about what we're doing? How can we set your mind at ease if needed? Or how can we look at ourselves and make changes that need to be made? That's what this is about.
I would say that I'm helping Emma with math at home, and math has changed a lot from when I was a kid. I mean, a lot. Like, I felt like a moron. Really. You know, because it was borrowing, and it was not... It was... So, like, if you ever... I guess I feel like I don't know the best way to help her because I don't understand how she's being taught because it was so different than how I was taught.
We don't want to undo anything.
Yeah, I don't want to set her back. I don't want to, you know, like, okay, her math box is on top of it, and I'm like, I don't know what.
How did they tell you how to do it?
Right.
Right, and then,
I
and
went
so.
through last night. Yeah.
It's more visual than I think we were taught growing up. There's
So-
much more of a visual component.
Any sort of, maybe a refresher for parents on how math is being taught now, because it's so different.
Well, and may I speak down to
I haven't eaten dinner yet.
Elizabeth and I are putting together this idea of a think tank because one of my pet peeves working in a fairly restrictive environment was just that you had, I grew up my whole entire life calling it borrowing.
Yes.
All of a sudden, I enter my professional career and I have to call it regrouping. And I'm not even allowed to use the word borrowing. That's not how children's minds work. It might work to call it borrowing for one, and it might work to call it regrouping for another. Some may need the tools, some may love the algorithm. We have these conversations all the time, especially Elizabeth and I. And me. We are going to, on this one. No, I was wrong the first time.
I have these conversations all the time.
Especially Elizabeth and me.
Oh, okay.
It was a
We'll talk about it later. We digress.
But we are putting together a new idea, which it would be really fun to have parents involved in, called a think tank. Because what we're really discovering, and the broad world of education is discovering, and I am up on every single current detail there is out there, is that every person thinks of it differently. If I were to say to you, add 7 and 5, do it. Some of you add a 3 and then a 2. Some of you take the 2 from the 7, add a 5, stick it back on. So each of us think differently about mathematics. Some of us still
Some of us
count.
couldn't solve it. We're still
Some of us said 75.
I was not his teacher.
So it's a tricky time in mathematics because of that, because every single person sees it, hears it, thinks of it differently. And currently, and I don't want to go too far into sort of the politics and the issues out there, but in our national effort to test better, for lack of a better way to say it, that's the culminating comment, schools are going more and more toward a cookie cutter standardized view of math. No, you may not say borrowing anymore, kind of approach. We don't think that's the best route. I'm pretty sure that as it all sifts out in the next 30, 40 years, it won't have been the best route at all. So when you're teaching your kids math, don't think there's a specific way. We taught them, and we think they need to think of it. So Jen, when Emma's struggling with subtraction, feel free to, sometimes I say, okay, Sam, just the other day, I was teaching a little boy borrowing and subtraction. I said, come here, Sam, I'm a 7, and you're a 9, and he's asking me for 8. Can I borrow 1? You know, we started this whole skit, and it got through. You know, so there is not just one way. There just just isn't. However it works for you might work for your child. If it doesn't, tell us about it the next day. I'm really sorry this didn't get through. Bob Tyler comes in almost every day saying, I really don't know how to help her. And we can help him help her, you know. So please don't feel like we are saying you have to call it this and you have to put that number in that box. However it gets through to them, that's our goal.
And honestly, by exposing them to different ways and terms and methods, you're just going to make the conversations that we can have, your student and me, that much richer and that much more in depth. So you're not going to undo anything.
You can always redo it.
No kid wants to hear it. Well, when I was in school, we didn't, you know.
I got a chalkboard.
Yeah. So knowing that,
Draw a picture.
yeah.
Go online, Khan Academy sometimes tells things the very best way. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's tiny little lectures that you can search for. You've got 15,000 lessons on there or something. You know, there are so many resources and so many ways to think about things. We find that so exciting
And
around
we
here.
do that to get, for instance, with the older kids, Elizabeth will sometimes say to me, I help during academic options, the kids spread out and they work on what they want to work on. This is the older group. But this is a really good point with the group of teachers that we have. Elizabeth will sometimes say to me, don't try to help them with this concept. I'm really on track with this. Send them to me if they're having trouble. And so we know ahead of time, okay, if this kid's in front of me and is working on math and says, hey, Miss Stacy, I'm not sure about this, I'll say, let's go ask Miss Elizabeth. She wants to make sure that this concept's this way. But what I've also discovered, which is really cool, is I'm not a math teacher. But I remember learning math like you, Jen, this certain way. And so the very first time I sat down to help an older kid with math, I was like, well, don't forget this step. And he was like, well, that's not how we learned it. I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden he goes, but that makes sense. And 20 minutes later he was done and he bebopped in and it was like, I finished this. And I felt good because I didn't have the apprehension that you're talking about. I didn't really think about it. I was like, well, this makes sense to me, so let me show it to you this way. And it made sense to him and it was great. And I was afraid of confusing him. Sometimes there are some concepts that, yes, you can actually kind of confuse them a little bit, but I still think it's worth it, especially if a kid is like, I just can't wrap my brain around this. Because all these ladies talk to each other, we help each other in that way. And that's the beauty of being elementary. I mean, we all are supposed to have some basic knowledge of these computational skills and things, and we do help each other and help kids, you know, a skit or going old school like I did.
I had to
like,
go.
I call it borrowing, you know.
I had to go to you for one of your lessons once and say, I really have no idea what to do. Please help me help this child.
with the kids. Yeah, I know the answer to that. But those two websites, guys, I don't know if you have something to write with, put it in your phone, maybe you go to khanacademy.org and ixl.com are amazing math resources when you're at home and you're stuck on something. Also, there's a few book titles if anybody's interested. And I'm sure Miss Erica has a few websites that she uses as well.
Or seriously, pop me an email. You know, I'm incessant. Where's my phone? Oh my God.
I hid it from you over here.
Or your classroom teacher's email. I mean, that's the best
Yeah.
way to get, and just shoot them a quick email. This was frustrating. Can you give me a heads up? And it would take you 2 seconds. That's not a bother, and especially if it makes things go smoothly at home and encourages academics at home to make you feel better and your child, by all means. I mean, let us know.
Jen was able to do that last week. That was fun. And I don't even know where I was, probably getting in the car or something, you know, and it was easy, and I thought, yay, they're on track now, you know. It really is okay. It really is what you should do. That's what you're paying for. That's one of the things. So thank you. Good question. Anything else on those lines? Okay. Anybody else? Jen.
Help me understand what the chain is when, you know, I constantly hear from my kids, you know, they bring home a project, not just in the littler groups, but the older one, because I've got one kid in each group, but, well, when is it due? I don't know. Okay? Because what frustrates me,
And the problem is,
right? the problem is, I operate under a strict management of my time. And if you come to me at 6 p.m. on Thursday night, and, oh my God, I have this project due tomorrow, I didn't have time to help you with it. I got other things. So now an emergency on your part is an emergency on my part, and now we have this antagonistic, you may not make it to the next grade thing going on. And how do we know when stuff's due? I mean, I assume they know. And then the other thing is, if they don't turn it in on time, is there some sort of accountability, or is it just okay? Because that makes me crazy.
That's different in every age group.
Because I can't handle we committed to doing it. I failed to get it done, but there is absolutely no big deal if I turn it in 3 days late, because that's just not how life works for me, or for them down the road. And I don't want to instill these really bad work habits, and I want to do my part as a parent to help them stay on track, but I know you all have to have told them when stuff's due.
This coming from the mother of the children who never turned things in late.
Really?
Oh yeah. Your kids are so on top of
Yeah.
it.
And if you recognize,
Then apparently I am expecting too much.
No, I have the same concern.
the front page of your report cards, for instance, those are very different standards than what on the following pages, which are subject-based. If your child, we feel, struggles with deadlines, struggles with having the discipline and using their time wisely, and needs to take things home, and really does struggle, that's reflected on that front page under work habits and work ethic, initiative, responsibility, and dependability. We do value those things, so please don't think
Oh,
that,
I know you value it, but there's just some sort of disconnect between them communicating that at home, I think.
oh sure, yeah.
But
I
I
can
expect
see
that's
that.
normal to some degree.
To some degree, and especially the younger ones, and sometimes they can just end up in a panic, not even really knowing what's due when, and I think that is communicated very well, and I also think that it just depends on the child's personality. There are some that really do struggle with getting things initiated and getting moved through, and then there are others that worry about it too much to a point where it kind of inhibits their progress, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
That overwhelming feeling where they feel like handicapped. And we try to keep it in the middle. We make sure we give plenty of reminders. Also, I mean, in your world especially, the younger kids, there's lots of reminders. I mean, there are multiple daily reminders if you have big things going on. But we also try to keep that in the bounds of school for the most part. If your child is bringing things home, and with a panic, then, and you're not really sure why or what seems, I mean,
There's
shoot
never
an email.
panic. There's not enough panic.
See, I'm kind of curious because besides the reading, my kids never come home with anything. So is that normal?
Homework is available upon request.
Okay.
Maybe that's our problem.
Because I like
Tell
it.
me you knew that. Please tell me you knew that.
Please, or one of you little kid teachers speak to that, because I know it's probably very different for Stacey, Jordan, and I,
Definitely.
as far as deadlines.
Well, I have a couple parents that have come to me and asked for math, so I do send that home. But really, like Jackie just said, if you want it, I will send it. But I don't want to send stuff home if it's going to cause a burden or if you don't have time at home. I randomly will send stuff with a note, like if you want to do it, feel free. But if you want it as a regular thing in your world, let me know and I can certainly do that.
Part of what I was just going to say that it's funny because I'm getting questions now in year 4 that I wouldn't have ever imagined from year 1. Because when I opened this school and had those 22 little precious beings the first year, I boldly stood up and said things like, I want to start a school where your children learn at their own pace. Yeah. Got all these inspired people in the audience. Now, I almost feel criminal for letting your children learn at their own pace. And that is something I want to say strongly to you guys. That's why you're here, or partly. I don't believe in sameness in any way, shape, or form. And that includes sometimes due dates. And it includes sometimes keeping everybody on the same page. They're not on the same page. And I don't believe in homework. Personally, as a parent, I don't believe in homework as a teacher. I do understand that there are kids like Emma, my daughter, who like to do things at home. And there are kids like Sam who will run as far as he can from it. He's going to hit that reality next year in high school. We've talked a lot about it. That will be his reality next year. It will be a shift in his home life. But do I regret 14 years of having a great family life, other than Orsch, at home and letting him be a child at home? Heck no, and I never will. And no, I don't think he would have been better prepared by practicing busy work at home. No.
Well, Jen, I'd like to speak to the work ethic. We have strong expectations for your children and their work ethic. We do. That's inherent in everything we do. I mean, I look at kids and go, well, what do you think about that? If somebody comes to me, I'm not sure if I can get this done, and this happens with the older ones. It's like, well, what do you think you're going to do to solve that problem? Where can you go back in your mind and say, how did I get here? And every single one of them honestly said, I might have wasted a little bit of time. But not a lot, because they're not allowed to waste a lot of time. But it is their responsibility. It is on them to do things, and that expectation never goes away. That's not something, so whether it's due date or not due date, they walk in this door and they know that what their expectation is. You will work hard, or you won't get the warm fuzzies all the time. I mean, and some days, some kids' potential to work hard is huge. And that same kid could come in the next morning and their potential has shrunk. Whether it's not having slept right, woke up on the wrong side of the bed, just needs more love than they need math. Okay? The responsibility is even greater on our part to recognize that, nurture it, and not use it as an excuse to get out of an expectation that we have for them. And we make that very clear, especially in the young grades, in the younger ones. There's a lot of back and forth about that. And like Jackie, I've taught many, many years, and having had kids of my own, it works really well. And speaking from experience with your kids have great work ethics. They take it seriously. We have more concern with a kid that the light bulb hasn't turned on to put their learning in motion on their own. We work really hard to get them to learn how to take control of their education before we start just saying, do it, get it done. Do you know what I mean? So that intrinsic motivation they develop on their own, and it's not always exterior driven.
And if you think about that really deeply, and I so appreciate the way you're raising your kids, Jen. They are amazing little workers and attentive and on task. Amber wasn't the first year, though. I hope you don't mind me saying.
No, Amber was the laziest child ever. I'll say it.
Amber,
but she is a completely. I mean, it's a wonder to behold.
Yeah, because she found it herself. And if you really think deeply about that, that is an essential life skill that you want your kids to have in whatever environment. If they need to pull together and get a project done at home, if they need to wake up and have 10 baby lambs, those are essential life skills that between 9 and 3:30, man, that is one of our biggest missions, is to have them take ownership of those things. Just to answer your question and set your mind at ease, all of you, if you think that there's lack of communication with a due date, you think they're confused, you feel like it should have a due date, we could throw a due date on it. You can ask us what's reasonable or if there is a due date. Sometimes you put a due date on your grids. Sometimes you say, okay, this has got to be in on Friday. And they're flexible within the class, and they're flexible with each student. I just had Elizabeth make a deal with a student last week. I said, how are we going to get him caught up? Because he needs to know the material. He can't sit there missing 12 stickers while everybody else keeps moving on, getting more stickers. His personality needs an individualized approach to this. We made a plan. We made a deal. He's cruising now. And he's not going to find himself, he's cruising now?
Yes.
He's not going to find himself back in that slump. And that's part of the beauty that Amber came through, is finding those skills to do that herself.
And she's all about it.
Yeah. So, but please feel free, Sia, Jen.
I think
if you feel like you need
I
a due date.
respect the mindset behind it, and maybe I just have an individual situation with one of my kids, but it translates into